There was a bit of a, like talking about technology battles, there did seem to be a bit of a clash between people wanting to go to 25G PON and like Huawei, I seem to remember being very much no, we're not going to, we want to go straight to 50G PON and 25G PON, we don't see the need for it really. But has that died away? Or?
So there's a couple of things I typically came across in discussions. First of all, 25 is pragmatic in the sense that we saw 25 gig PON come up in the data center as a typical connection.
Right.
So as soon as that started to happen, all of a sudden the technology became affordable for residential, or at least the access. And that's actually the reason why we said, if we can develop now a chip that does 10 gig, now is a good time to make it such that it can also do 25 gig.
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. I'm a little bit flustered at the start of recording this because they cancelled about 3 trains before I got here. I normally try and get here well in advance, have a cheeky bit of sushi, chat to our guest, who I'll introduce in a sec, work out what we're going to talk about, but I had to just leg it straight in and I got here like 2 minutes ago.
Out of breath or something?
You didn't even have time
not quite out of breath because I'm so supremely fit, Pierre, but thanks for asking. What'd you say?
I said you didn't even have time to buy
I didn't
ice.
have time, so I normally get the ice. Given that it's the Telecoms.com podcast, it's fair enough that I buy the ice. But Ian kindly did it this time. Cheers, mate. Because I didn't want to eat into our time. And our time with our very special guest, Bjorn Capens.
I go with anything.
Bjorn, well, I'll just, whatever you prefer, man. I just want to get it right.
Capens is right.
Capens. Bjorn Capens, who, despite your first name, you're from Belgium. and even more relevant to this podcast, you're from Nokia.
Correct.
Which is quite a coincidence because the reason we didn't do a podcast last week is because we were up in a place called Oulu in northern Finland with Nokia. So this is going to be a double Nokia podcast. It's I suppose quite complimentary because you're on the fixed line side of things.
Correct. Yeah.
What do they call that within Nokia? What's that mega silo called?
The group is called network infrastructure.
Network infrastructure.
And that consists of the IP part of the network, the optical transport part of the network, and then my area of, you could say, business or expertise, which is the fixed broadband access part.
Right. Cool.
Now the biggest part.
That's the biggest part. Okay,
Network
cool.
Infrastructure by sales.
Yes, indeed. And then the next biggest part is the part that invited us up to Oulu because they've opened up a very impressive new R&D and manufacturing campus up there near the Arctic Circle. But that's very much focused on radio, 5G, 6G, all that jazz.
Correct.
So we'll pivot into that. And I won't, given that we've eaten into time because I was so late, I'll just nip the opening bollocks in the bud because the main bit of opening bollocks would have been us talking about that trip anyway, wouldn't it?
Well, we're going to do that then, aren't we?
Exactly. We're going to do it as a segment, so I don't need to go on about it now, is my point.
So the opening bollocks is going to be in the middle instead of at the start?
Yeah, it's going to be middle bollocks.
All right. That's good. That's where they belong.
My favourite kind of bollocks. So we'll just crack straight on with it. Actually, before we go any further, the one bit of opening bollocks we should do, Bjorn, as I said, you're from Belgium. And I should give a shout out to Paul Adams, your colleague, is in the background, and then Brian. Oh, sorry, Brian, I forgot your surname. What's Brian's surname? Brian L, who's also here, but we've only got room for one for a +1 in here. So Brian's just hanging out outside. But they will advise you that it's tradition that we drink beer and that our guests drink beer.
Absolutely.
And you're Belgian, so am I going to guess that you brought some Belgian beers?
I brought some Belgian beer. I've been trying them all the way from Antwerp.
I think
grab them?
Yeah,
they invented it, so...
Whoa, that's a good bag of them.
Again, I asked Brian for advice. He said, bring a dozen, about a dozen, he said.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're finishing a dozen today, but...
No, well, especially not if it's normal Belgian
and I went
stuff.
to the average store to just buy some beer.
Yes, and we've got a video which you've shared with Pierre, so we'll splice that in. Look at us getting all post-production sophisticated these days.
Look at the expiration date of that one, Scott.
Expiration date, 2045.
So that's a special
It's
beer.
so Belgian that no bacteria will go anywhere fucking near it.
Exactly. So that's a while to go. So we're not in a hurry to finish that one.
No, we're all right, and we shouldn't be because it's opaque and it's 7%. It's called. You pronounce that?
Heus. It's a special beer.
Okay.
It's very
I'm just
bitter.
going to line a
very
few of them
sour,
up here,
in
and I'll
fact.
put some on ice as well.
There's a story to every beer.
A story to every beer.
Triple is also a stronger beer, but triple d'Anvers. So d'Anvers
8%.
is the
you
French
trying to
word
do
for
to us,
Antwerp. For Antwerp,
Okay, no.
and this is a bit the birthplace of broadband in the company. So I thought it was appropriate.
Muk Shufi with a
La Chouffe. So La Chouffe is quite widespread now, but they got plenty of flavors. And I thought I'd go with the dark one.
Is there a Duvel in there? 6% as well.
No, I left that out.
Why? But they don't like doing normal strength beers, do they?
You just have normal beer in Belgium.
No, it's okay.
This one even looks...
You'll come across some less strong ones, don't worry.
Leffe, a mere 6.6%.
They're trying to lull you into a false sense of security by putting a cute picture on it.
Leffe is pretty known.
What's this one?
There's a bit of a story to that. My son's a basketball player.
You've got to say what it's called.
And it's called Geranimo.
Oh yeah, I could have had
it's probably free after an Indian cheese or something.
Indeed.
But the fun part of that, and just to illustrate the Belgian culture, even a sports club would then go and brew their own beer, right? Which is not very common because you'd expect them to do different things too.
That explains why you tend to disappoint in the world.
I like them doing that. This makes me think more highly of sports clubs.
You see the slogan there: one beer, one team.
Yeah, you should say. Should be one beer and you're done, because this one is 8.5%.
It's another strong one. You'll get some less strong ones. Don't worry.
So we've got the whole selection. You got no duplicates. You got Waterloo.
I thought that was appropriate. Yeah, there you go. I thought it was appropriate. That's another brown one. Brown ale.
That's
brown ale.
That's.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Heard of that
Duke
place.
of Wellington kicking Napoleon's ass.
This is a pretty light one. This is a pretty light one, if you will. Bolleke.
Yes.
You know Bolleke?
Oh yes.
It really was the opening bollocks.
Yeah. That's a bit. But Bolleke is a very traditional Antwerp beer, and given we
we'll have some of that.
I reckon you should have a Bolleke.
Bolleke is good.
Yes.
It's like Mary Poppins bags.
Look, just to counterbalance, to get the average alcohol level down. This is a non-alcoholic beer, which comes with let me explain.
He's going to throw that at you.
It's all extreme.
It's very extreme. No, what I'm saying is, in a couple of years ago, when you wanted a non-alcoholic beer, you had the choice between one or two, right? And now I went to this store. You get like a whole shelf of non-alcoholic beers, and actually, there's good ones. So I brought one of the good ones. So
wow,
I'll let you judge after.
Yeah, I'll probably have a look at that next January.
There you go.
That'll be the next time I intend to not drink alcohol.
Well, there you go.
How strong's the Bolleke?
That's only
Bolleke's
5
not
and a
very
bit.
strong.
Oh, it's misleading, isn't it?
Put some of that on ice.
Oh, this is another Antwerp beer. I think it's safe beer. Yeah, it's a neighborhood.
6.5. We could just about handle that, I think.
So.
And then
there's one I've heard of, but it's probably a mass-produced one called Duvel.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I've heard familiar with that.
But that is a very typical lager beer, pils beer.
I like the really
it's not very strong. It's really good.
Down branding as well.
Yeah,
it's like look, it's just a fucking. Let's not get carried away. It's a beer.
Yeah,
it's like something made in Russia.
So you can do this one. You can do this one.
Put some of that, and more importantly, Bjorn, are you going to have one? And which one do you want? Pax, Pils, Peace?
Yeah, Pax is just a lager beer. It's very very light one.
Okay,
it was actually 5%. It was I think the first time they brew Pax, because you know what Pax means, right? It's Latin.
Peace.
Yeah. It was brewed shortly after the First World War, and it was kind of to commemorate the World War.
After the First World War, that went well then, didn't it? We got a lot of peace after that.
Yeah, you. By the way, thanks for the help.
Yeah, anytime.
We could use some help.
If you could just stop getting invaded for a bit, we'd really appreciate that.
Don't blame us.
No, that's true. It's hardly your fault. Do you want one, Bjorn? Do you want me to chill it for a bit? Or are you
I think you should have one of the British ones then, so because he lives there, so he can have all.
No, it's up to him, man.
I can taste the British one. I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
You can have like a neck oil. You can have one of the ones that Paul brought. The Wingman.
Yeah, it's fine.
We'll try one of Paul's Wingmen. This is a Brewdog one. We nearly always drink, if we can get hold of it, another Brewdog one called Hazy Jane.
It looks good.
This has been chilled a little bit.
One of his wingmen or one of his wingmans?
Well, that's a good point. I went in one direction, but I wasn't totally confident with my choice. If I'm
not sure what they think of your rebranding of their drink.
Belgium is known for many things, like beer and broadband, but also comic books, actually.
So was Belgium one of the countries that sort of pioneered the 25G PON rollout? With
Proximus, we did.
Proximus did something a couple of years ago.
What a pro telecoms pivot that was.
Yeah. We did a worldwide launch of the technology in the live network of Proximus. Still remember the event was at the headquarter location of the Port of Antwerp, so we got a lot of press attention there. A couple of years ago, though.
Yeah, I seem to remember being on at the press conference.
Was it
not
pre-COVID or during the pandemic?
Yeah, it was during, but it was when it was going on.
I think. Yeah, because now I remember the audience was a bit restricted due to that.
Yeah.
I think.
So in the same way that where we've been in Oulu and it's R&D for mobile, is there kind of a similar presence in Belgium? Or
yeah. So like I said a few times, subliminally. Antwerp is a bit of the heart of broadband developments in Nokia, as a matter of fact. Our history goes back to, my history at least, goes back to the Alcatel days. I'm talking 90s now.
Yeah.
Then after came Alcatel-Lucent, after came Nokia, but all along, in fact, we kept our consistent, let's say, development efforts for the fixed access part. And as a matter of fact, last week it was great timing, because last week we threw a party in the Antwerp office because we were celebrating. Remember that ADSL? Huh?
Right.
We actually had pioneering of ADSL in the 90s. Of course, it's been a massive success.
Nokia was an ADSL pioneer.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, it all started with a 3.
Or was it the Lucenty bit?
No,
the
Alcatel bit. It was the
Alcatel bit. Sorry.
In fact, okay. Let me take you down to
please do.
History a bit more. So the origin story of the office that I'm part of in Antwerp now goes back to the 19th century. So let me quickly explain. Telephony was invented by Mr. Alexander Graham Bell, end 19th century. Then right after, his father-in-law, who wasn't an inventor but a businessman, said, that's a cool invention.
That's some money.
Let's commercialize it. It was immediately widely, massively successful in the US. And then a couple of years after, he said, let's go and export that outside of the US. And okay, I'm so proud of this. No credits. They said, of all places, they had that second facility in Antwerp. Probably proximity of the port helped.
Yep.
The fact that Belgium at that time was a relatively young country, young, dynamic, modern. Okay, I'll keep it at that. They probably helped companies like that to get founded and stuff. But that's important, because due to the fact that we started to build telephony systems in the 19th century, which then got spread worldwide. Well, you can imagine 100 years after many generations of development on telephony, all of a sudden some smart people said, let's try and do broadband on those copper networks that have been widely spread. And all of a sudden, mid-90s, there was a handful of people who really took an idea, the concept of ADSL, to a product, and for the first time actually started to export that as a solution.
So, like, ADSL was only a mid-90s thing. I remember my dial-up broadband and all that sort of thing, but I didn't have a real sense of how long it had been around when I got into it. But it's quite a new technology, then, was it?
Roughly, it was funny, because there was a recent article about America Online stopping their dial-up service.
Yeah, I remember reading.
They're going to stop end of the month, by the way. So I think dial-up started like end 80s, early
Another
90s.
of Verizon's amazing acquisitions, that was.
Yeah, exactly. and around the year 89 or 90, the dial-up era started, right? Well, remember the famous tone?
Yeah.
Which you had to use to dial up the internet, exactly.
Yeah.
But by the way,
even
painfully slow connections at that time. I still remember then you wanted to get one image on your screen, and it was building line by line by line. It was like, okay, anyway, I was too young for porn, so it didn't matter. But anyway, cut that. Anyway,
we're not cutting anything, mate.
No. but then came ADSL, and that was cool, because all of a sudden, just to give you an idea, the dial-up was like 50K ish max, and all of a sudden ADSL could do 100 times more, 5 meg.
Oh yeah, right.
100 times, which was fantastic, because all of a sudden the pictures were like on the screen, a snap of the finger. You could download fast and stuff.
But
whatever content you wanted was more easily accessed.
Exactly. Let's leave it at that.
But I think for most people, like it was later than that even. I remember my parents had. So I was at university up sort of 92, 95, and my parents had dial-up then.
Yes.
And it wasn't really until probably the late 90s, early 2000s
I got ADSL in 2001.
Well, let me say the following. I joined the company in 99, precisely. And shortly after, we celebrated 1 million of ADSL lines shipped globally. So that was the level of where we were at. A couple of years after, we've been shipping 100 million. So it's exactly that time.
Yeah.
So early 2000.
So while we're doing this sort of nostalgia thing, so ADSL's over copper.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so the actual substrate, the wires through which it goes aren't any different. It's just a technology that enabled data through copper. Was there anything like especially revolutionary about it, or is it just an incremental improvement on dial-up? Or
what was of course very, very relevant is that all of a sudden, so dial-up literally was using I'm not going to get too technical, but it was using the frequency spectrum originally designed for telephony.
Yeah.
So low frequency spectrum. The revolutionary
part
of
we still
ADSL,
talk about spectrum within fixed lines.
Yeah, correct.
In a similar way that we do over mobile.
That's why you couldn't do both at the same time.
Exactly. And by the way, that's why it was called dial-up, because remember, you connect to the internet, and you couldn't be on the phone.
Yeah.
Right, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So ADSL did two things. First, it increased the speeds, factor 100. Secondly, it was always on technology.
Yeah.
Because you could do it and in the meantime still make a phone call.
Yeah.
Now, what to me was most important is you could reuse the network, right? Because you'd been building copper networks for 100 years, and all of a sudden you could implement that just by putting some electronics in the central offices and stuff. And that's how it is.
It's the boxes at either end, isn't it? The innovation.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should finish my story on the party and why we threw it.
Yeah, please do.
Because we
I want to know how that went and whether you're drinking this kind of beer that you just brought.
I'll comment on that afterwards. Anyway, ADSL got a couple of weeks ago the very prestigious IEEE Milestone Award. So IEEE is this Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. They contribute to standardization, publications and all. And they recognize milestones, which means technical advancements that had a lasting impact on society.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a tough definition. So the fact that ADSL got that recognition is pretty nice, because it all of a sudden it became in a lineup of things like the invention of telephony, the invention of the compact disc, just to give an idea, transatlantic submarine cables, very, very important, let's say, steps in the history of mankind. It was a big thing because we got the IEEE president over to the office. So we did an unveiling of a plaque just to commemorate.
You forwarded me the press release and I've just seen it.
It's pretty cool.
Nokia, their headline is Nokia recognised IEEE milestone award for ADSL breakthrough, enabling the evolution from 1 megabits per second to 100 gigabits per second broadband. And this award goes to things like
100 gigabits per second.
Not on copper.
Yeah. I guess they're saying it's just the start of the process, isn't it? Okay. Other winners have been Maxwell's equations, the transatlantic cable, and the compact disc.
There you go.
Okay.
That was a Dutch thing, wasn't it? It was Philips.
That was a Dutch thing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll tell you a story. So the IEEE people came over for the inauguration, and then they kept insisting. They said, "This is only the 5th milestone award in the Benelux." Now, me being in Belgium, that's a business message.
Yeah.
Because, as a matter of fact, it's the first in Belgium.
Do you get bored of being...
I thought it was much more important.
Do you get bored of being grouped in with Netherlands and Luxembourg the whole time?
Well, it's going on for...
Luxembourg?
I think the...
Well, it's the Lux at the end of it. I mean, no one really talks about Luxembourg.
It depends what angle you're looking at. Sometimes I see these things like, oh, did you know that the GDP of the Benelux alone is as big as... And then they collect like 20 countries in the world randomly, so...
Right.
Then I feel flattered. But in general, there is always this
but the award, I think I'd put ADSL ahead of the compact disc, because the compact disc was actually a relatively short-lived innovation, really.
Yeah.
It was very quickly in the way that like records were around for a long time, and actually people are now...
What did the CD window was? 10, 15 years?
The CD window is very short.
It was relatively short, because then came the mini disc. I remember that.
And then all of that stuff went onto ADSL.
Absolutely.
And it was all
streamed. And ADSL, I still remember we used to refer to it as a stopgap solution, right? Before fiber would come.
Right.
And then it turned out that it was a stopgap that lasted for a while.
Yeah. But in a way that the press release describes it, it kind of paves the way, doesn't it? Because some of the technologies that are used in the electronics at either end are not that dissimilar to what... I know the infrastructure changes in the middle.
Absolutely, because after ADSL came VDSL, as you remember, still deployed.
Yeah.
And then after came fiber. So we also started...
So ADSL is asymmetric digital subscriber line.
Correct.
I don't know why I thought advanced, but that just shows that I'm shit at my job.
When I talk about it in my office, I usually say it's the A for Antwerp, but that's a bit of an...
Antwerp digital subscriber, yeah. And what's the V in VDSL?
Virtual,
very, very high speed.
Oh, very high speed.
Very high speed digital subscriber line.
Very digital subscriber line.
Very.
Good. That's good that V's just very.
And then the next one is the fucking digital subscriber line.
UDSL Ultra.
Okay. Cool.
And then of course, just to explain the title, because you looked a bit like 100 gig. So remember ADSL, couple of megabits, VDSL, tens up to hundreds of megabits. It depends if you go vectoring and all. Let's not go there. And then came PON along, right? Because in the meantime, even like 25 years ago, PON was being developed. There was A-PON, B-PON, plenty of letters being...
Some of these things
until GPON made it, right? Yeah. Until GPON made it, and was there to last for many.
So what was wrong with B-PON and E-PON that they didn't survive when GPON did?
I think it was, sometimes these innovations are just too early, and there's no usage. There's no killer app that drives it. It's funny because ADSL, I still remember that originally it was meant to be used for video on demand.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the market was rather internet, right? Because in the 90s, the internet came, and all of a sudden, everyone wanted to just email and download photographs and all.
Yeah.
And that ultimately appeared to be the killer application. And video was put on the back burner until it reappeared.
Yeah.
And of course, when fiber was further developed, all of a sudden video became more important. Look at the streaming services and all. So that's
There was
that
a big
part was added.
illegal video stuff as well back in the day where
With file sharing.
dial-up wouldn't be possible, and then ADSL really made it possible to actually download a movie. Before it'd be like 3 days, be like, forget it.
Exactly.
And ADSL,
File sharing, for which my favourite band did so much to nip in the bud, Metallica, having a go at Napster back in the day and all that.
I was just going to ask, do you think the kind of technology battles that happen, when new standards come along and like it's maybe more publicised in mobile, you had the WiMAX sort of LTE thing, and then you go back earlier than that, you had the different variants of 3G and China pushing its own one. But I get the feeling that broadband had some of that in the early days, and now people seem to sort of more coalesced around one thing. That
it seems to converge. I still remember going to FTTH council meetings 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it was a bit of a debate between point-to-point fiber and point-to-multipoint.
Yeah.
I think we're over that. I think
so point-to-point is dead or not going to...
For the residential market, it's gone. I think everyone realizes that. Because look, broadband is always the same story, right? You want to get as many people connected to as high speeds as possible. Huh? That's roughly what broadband is all about.
Yeah.
And the point was that point-to-point, although technically and capacity-wise it's a good solution, it was not the most cost-effective.
It's just economically not viable.
So as long as so there's you could say ubiquity, there's speed, and there's efficiency, and probably PON beat the other technologies by efficiency. Huh?
Yeah. So the guys that were backing point-to-point were confident of making it work economically. Was that a bit naive? Or?
Well, I think it worked in some places, by the way. I still remember in Sweden, so where my first name comes from, that
you named after the tennis player?
Good guess. Good guess.
Do you play tennis?
Most people go and talk about ABBA first, and then I say, no.
That's a good point, isn't it? I was going to say that's the only Bjorn I can think of, but
no, I
it's
play badminton still. I played tennis before. With such a name.
You have to play tennis if you're called Bjorn. Yeah.
But it's annoying, by the way, when I travel in the Nordics, people would see my name and start talking whatever language to me.
Indeed. Do you know what? Even I get that, being fair-haired. They sometimes, when I'm in Denmark, they start talking Danish, which even by foreign languages standards seems especially impenetrable to me.
The Vikings invaded Antwerp, and I'm not going to...
Yeah. Anyway, don't worry, I think I'm probably from Viking descent in some state.
I wasn't going to
East Anglia is where my family is. See, that's where they used to first turn up.
There you go. Explains a lot of things. Explains a lot of things.
Yeah.
Where were we? What was the question?
You were talking about point-to-point. Economics
point-to-point. I was saying Sweden. I was saying Sweden because they got it right. Well, right. Again, from an operator perspective, the hardest thing to do is to convince people that, you bring value, right? And all of a sudden they managed to make people understand that having a fiber connection in a home is valuable because it just increases the value of the property.
Yeah.
And they went as far as, I'm not sure about now, but at that time they were charging their customers to get connected to the point-to-point fiber connection by €1,000 or something.
Wow.
And Swedes would go like, yeah, I take it. And that didn't work in all countries.
No, they've always got far too much money in Sweden.
There you go.
I always thought, like, some of these increments, like in the UK, we used to talk about a thing called G-fast, G.fast, or whatever.
G.fast.
You ever go at the bollocks?
Drink some bollocks.
Yeah, I've got an.
Of course, please do. By the way, I like this one as well.
You like that? Well, you can thank your colleague for that one.
Thanks, Paul. Cheers.
G.fast was a sort of halfway house thing, wasn't it, really?
Well, I was going to say, before we go into that,
networks.
it always felt like asset sweating to me. It's like, look, we've got all this, we know fiber's inevitable, but how much more can we get out of our legacy assets?
My simple view on that is the following. I thought G.fast was going to be the next thing after ADSL, after VDSL, and then G.fast would be more of the same, right? Just using more frequencies on the spectrum and get more speeds. Yeah? You like it?
So we got button. Yeah. How's the bollock?
It tastes Belgian.
Tastes nice and Belgian.
It tastes nice and Belgian.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment. But you should explain
it. I like Belgian beers. So
I'm amazed they haven't been marketing this in the UK. People will buy it for the name alone.
By the way, you can visit. Okay, I'm not going to advertise, but you can visit the brewery in Antwerp. It's a nice visit. You can. Anyway. What I was saying. G.fast originally, even for us, was thought to be the next step, right? You did ADSL, you did VDSL, and then you would do G.fast because it would just further sweat, like you said, the copper assets.
You move up the frequency band even more, don't you?
But the thing we underestimated, I guess, and that's logical, by the way. I remember my early days as a business developer. I've seen more rate reach curves than I ever wanted to see because that's what DSL is all about.
Yeah.
You can get high speeds. but the reach is limited. And depends on the technology, the reach is getting more limited. So G.fast, in the end of the day, was getting such a short reach that you need to get real close to the residentials. And you were getting almost as close as fiber would.
Right.
And to me, the economics of the whole thing, deploying G.fast in proper circumstances, would simply mean you would almost throw as much money into it as fiber.
That's interesting.
And that's why I think worldwide, G.fast has not taken up very, very strongly.
Because BT made a big thing about it, didn't they? When they were still slightly resistant to...
Still, they deployed it in a bit of a different way. I still remember the famous, 300 max over 300 meters thing.
Yeah.
So they kind of did a cabinet-based G.fast deployment, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
So they kind of, in that sense, were, on hindsight, they were a bit half pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Because they used the technology to get nice speeds at nice distances, but not huge speeds.
I thought it was quite...
And we had all this butchering of language of talking about super fast and all that sort of thing, which used to really work me up.
I remember writing about it loads because Gavin Patterson, I think he was at BT at the time, was on earnings calls talking about this weird arcane, we can do it from 300 metres away, when what he preferred to talk about was like spending lots of money on Premier League rights. And he was getting quizzed by analysts on this G.fast technology that he probably didn't really want to...
And he's going, look, it just works, all right, shut up.
It's good, you can do it 300 metres
There was nothing wrong with the technology. I'll tell you more. The wicked smart people in Antwerp who've been pioneering ADSL were the same people who've been pioneering G.fast.
Yeah.
So it's not about the technology.
Do you remember a company called Scipio? Scipio was doing the chips for G.fast.
They
were like the leading vendor of G.fast chips, and then I had no idea what happened. I used to speak to
a Roman general.
They probably
or
consolidated.
Or senator or something.
Yeah, he fought, the one that you're thinking of, fought Hannibal, I think.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, true. And then fiber came, right? And then all of a sudden, of course, it got the upper hand. And all of a sudden, fiber networks were being constructed and built. And by the way, finally closing the story, the press release then goes all the way to 100 gig. Why? Because, you started with ADSL, megabits. GPON brought gigabits, right? And that's been deployed now and advertised as tiered packages of hundreds of megabits or maybe up to a few gig. And then came 10 gig PON or XGS.
So here's a question. What's the difference between, now that we coalesced around GPON, it seems, and the other variants that, like BPON and EPON died.
Yeah.
And then we've got things like XGS PON and 25G PON and 50G PON, but they all seem to be based on GPON. Is that right? And then what changes then in that case?
Fundamentally, it's a good question, to be honest. I'm not super technical, so it's probably just like the various DSL variations were getting more out of the same physical medium.
Yeah.
This is a bit the same. Because the good thing again about PON is that no matter what standards we're going to implement, we can reuse the passive fiber infrastructure. Well, let's knock on wood, but I hope it can be used for another
100 years.
100 years or so.
Yeah.
I won't be here to tell you.
No one's talking about a different substrate, a different material other than optical fiber.
Not for now. And to be honest, if you look at the enormous costs it represents.
Someone suddenly did come up with it. Everyone goes, shut up.
Imagine someone going, let's replace.
In 100 years, they'll go, copper's actually better. We found a new way of doing it on copper. It's much better.
Yeah. Okay, now you fucking tell me.
By the way, it's funny because all people are now just, ripping out the copper networks again and then monetizing the copper as materials, right?
Yeah.
So,
by the way, I'm having a go at the Pax pills, named before the Schlieffen plan came into effect. So I just said that while Bjorn was having a drink. You nearly spat your beer out. And this is only 5%. It's very nice. It's just a regular drinking pills. We'll get onto the slightly more ambitious stuff in a bit.
Okay, I shouldn't say it, but I took this out of the fridge in the launch of the Eurostar premiere launch.
Oh, did you?
So, it was
so this is nicked out of the Eurostar.
Yeah,
nice
exactly.
one.
It's free.
It's free anyway, so it's good.
We like nicking stuff off the Eurostar, don't we?
Yeah.
Once Ian and I were coming back, I think it was from the French Open. And I just found one of their trolleys unattended, and I just nicked loads of little mini bottles of wine off it. I know.
If they're listening now,
I'm admitting this publicly, but it had to be done.
Yeah. Okay, let me just try. So again, reusing the fiber is a good thing because once you put in the effort, the money you want to reuse. So if you put GPON, you can right after just change the electronics and you get XGS PON. A simple way to remember what XGS does. X is the Roman number 10, so it does 10 gig. And the S stands for symmetrical, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to GPON that is typically deployed asymmetrically. And I think...
And tell us what the significance of symmetric and asymmetric is.
Uploads capacity. So what you will notice more and more is that, like for example, with ADSL, where everyone was just downloading from internet and let's say the active participation was poor, in these days you want to upload stuff, right? You want to upload stuff to the cloud. You want to
stream.
You want to stream. You want to. So there's a lot of traffic being consumed downstream, of course, the streaming and all. But there's more and more stuff being like Microsoft packages, putting all your files in the cloud, and you want to access them honestly.
Or just
permanent cloud stuff. So
that's
asymmetrics one way, symmetrics two way.
It's two way,
right?
Exactly.
Cool.
I have symmetric connection at home, and that's really helpful when I have like a 3 gig file.
There you go. And that's what you see now, right? Operators, of course, are addressing that opportunity and say, okay, here's a symmetrical offering. Huh? You can do a 1 gig up, 1 gig down, and that's helpful. Of course, not everyone is a super user, so not everyone needs it, but there's people who use it. Huh? Now, then, beyond 10 gig, because 10 gig is going on, right? I think we're now shipping more 10 gig lines than plain vanilla GPON lines. So we've reached that state.
Okay.
If I look at our shipment reports. So it's not a matter of if, it's just, it's ongoing. It's ongoing. Now, what's next? Good question. Jury's out. Huh? Because yes, we did develop ourselves 25 gig PON technology. Well, you can guess, it got 10 to 25. It's a bit technical, but the 10 is not really 10 because you got a payload and some overhead and stuff. So the best you can get out of a 10 gig PON is probably 8.5 gig or something. Right?
Yeah. This is incidentally a challenge that the fixed line, the broadband industry's had forever, which is these like up to sort of claims and all that sort of thing. And in my opinion, I don't pin this on Nokia, it's much more on the service providers. But when they make these up to claims that few people ever get anywhere near, I'm actually quite happy when the advertising standards authority.
I don't think they ever market it that way, do they? They don't. You wouldn't get it marketed as a 10 gigabit per second service because that's it goes through a splitter, doesn't it? So it goes into
it does. So it's shared at least with your neighbors.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tangent.
Fair,
I know.
But what's most important, I think, and that'll also explain maybe some future needs. You need to make a big distinction between what is the average consumption, right? That you would have on a day, and then you could even argue, maybe you'd only need a couple of tens of megabits that you need on average.
Yeah.
But then there's those moments where you need peak speeds. For example, if you're going to upload your file, you don't want to sit and wait the whole day. You want to have it done in a couple of seconds, and that's probably gonna determine the need for speed, if you want, right? So it's those instantaneous moments where you're just not patient enough to wait for minutes or hours, and just want to have it done. And that explains why the PON is perfect, because your neighbor is probably going to need that peak speed at a different moment in time than you. Yeah. And you can all consume that spectrum, right?
There was a bit of a, like, talking about technology battles, there did seem to be a bit of a clash between people wanting to go to 25G PON and like Huawei, I seem to remember being very much no, we're not going to, we want to go straight to 50G PON, and 25G PON, we don't see the need for it really. But has that died away? Or?
So there's a couple of things I typically came across in discussions. First of all, 25 is pragmatic in the sense that we saw 25 gig PON come up in the data center as a typical connection.
Right.
So as soon as that started to happen, all of a sudden the technology became affordable for residential, or at least the access. And that's actually the reason why we said, if we can develop now a chip that does 10 gig, now is a good time to make it such that it can also do 25 gig, because it's easy to do.
Yep.
And as I said before, the 10 gig technology, if you subtract the overhead and so forth, you maybe only do 8.5. Well, only. 25 is in my view the better 10 gig, because if you then distract or subtract all of that, you still keep 20 gig of useful payload, and that can be used, for example, for 10 gig symmetrical connections, if you would want to, for example, for Enterprise Connect or whatever. Okay. So I see it more as a kind of natural extension of the 10 gig. But by the way, just saying, everyone who's now deploying the 10 gig solution that we supply, and being modest, we own a big part of the market there, has 25 gig inside, because it's just present. It's just.
So it's just latent capability.
It's just a case of turning it on and paying.
You
for the
can turn it on.
license.
Exactly. Yeah. With minimal investment, you need to change the ONT probably at home, but that's it. 50 gig is different because it's fundamentally, again, I'm not a technician, but it's fundamentally more complicated to do.
You're more technical than I am, mate, so you're fine.
It's okay. So far, so good. The reason, by the way, why some of our colleagues, if I may call them like that, started to aim for 50 gig, especially in China, the adoption in China was also at a different pace. In Europe, we were still deploying GPON, as in 1 gig. In China, they've already been deploying the 10 gig longer, different variant. And I suppose, but again, it's me speculating, it was too early for them to confuse the market and say, hang in there, just do your 10 gig thing and just wait a bit. So that's what I'm thinking. So probably it was influenced more by what they saw as a market dynamic in China, which again, them being dominant world players as well, has influenced a bit the standardization discussion. Yeah. And us, from our perspective, being pragmatic and say, okay, in Europe and other places, we still need to make that step to 10 gig. And while the technology is available, we might as well, let's say, have 25 gig.
And as you say, if 25 is baked in to that, then that stands to reason. Yeah, that's the best explanation I've heard for it. Because in a really simplistic way, I always thought, why not, if you're going to upgrade, always go for the absolute fastest technology that's available at a given time? So you've helped me understand why.
Well, I used to have 100 and I moved to 1 gig symmetric, and there was 3 available, but 3 gig is, I couldn't really... I can wait a few more minutes for...
Yeah. Operators, okay, operators, if you're listening, close your ears. But they're typically very smart. They're very smart because they do like T-shirt marketing, right? Size marketing. They go like small, medium, large. And they kind of put a very large package out there, 5 gig, 8 gig.
For the crazy.
Realizing that there's the happy few who take it.
Yeah.
But the majority of people will typically then psychologically land in the middle.
Right.
Like, I'll do the medium one.
Yeah.
Which still might be a little bit larger than they would have thought of.
That's my thinking, yeah. That's my thinking.
So
that's the reason.
I was going to ask you about the business side of things a bit, because I think the last time the results came out, the fixed bit of network infrastructure was the fastest growing bit of the whole business. And we were talking about this before we came in, but it seemed like fixed within Nokia did really, really well during the pandemic when people were like investing in broadband. They were all at home. And then it seemed to drop down quite a bit. And now it seems to be coming back again. And I don't know if that's accurate, but...
more or less. Because what happened, of course, during the pandemic is that all of a sudden there were 2 things in my view. First, there was the need for broadband, because all of a sudden everyone started to work from home and wanting to be connected all the time. So that probably drove some capacity need. So that's one thing. And then secondly, there was in slipstream of the pandemic, there was the component shortage issues that no one had anticipated. And okay, we tried our very, very best to get our supply chain agile enough to deal with that. But nonetheless, once equipment was available, it was almost funny because it was the reverse situation than I ever experienced. All of a sudden, we could have probably sold it through e-auctions, because people were like, me, I want it, ship it to me. And
easiest time to be a sales guy.
Yeah. Okay, that's what you said. Anyway,
it's all relative. I'm sure you still did a great job.
But the operators had been piling up stuff in their warehouse and to be ready for deployment. Yeah. And that's probably the dip you mentioned, right? Because then shortly after, logically, they started to get back to normal, right?
Do you remember where they couldn't make cars and stuff?
Yeah.
Like in 2020, there was a massive freak out in the car industry because they couldn't get the chips.
Oh, they had all these parking lots.
But that affected also telecoms, right?
Yeah.
We had shortage of chips, components, anything.
Yeah.
So that explains the short dip. But then if you zoom out a bit and if you take abstraction of the years 22, 23, I guess, we're back to a normal, let's say, pattern where...
But I guess in the other the other things that Nokia does, which is pretty much everything in networks, unlike some other companies in the industry, the mobile stuff's slow for everybody. Optical and IP is going, but it seems almost more sort of expectation, a lot of it at the moment. And fixed is really kind of like, because my impression was that a lot of this had already been done in a way, that these networks, this transition to fiber had already happened. But it seems like maybe not.
So usually, again, I'm just saying the typical, let's say, behavior when I talk to my colleagues responsible for IP and optical.
Yeah.
They watch me. Why? Because typically the fixed access wave goes first. Because if they invest in more capacity, it's like you said, in the beginning, the networks are fine. They can cope with it.
Yeah.
But after a while, you probably need to think about, also increasing your transport links, probably also foreseeing a bit more capacity in IP. So that's why there's always a bit this kind of prediction that if the fixed access goes well,
then you need
a bit after. You'll see a bit of an investment wave. I'm talking the CSP segment now, right? The operator segment. And then, of course, I'm not super expert, but you see that also data centers are getting an increased interest.
Yeah,
big time.
Primarily for connectivity between data centers, because it's logical. Like I said, if you want to put stuff in the cloud, You need to have sufficient instances in the cloud to deal with that. And then also inside the data center, you're gonna do the fabric, right?
Well, not the Nokia Infinera acquisition. A lot of that is about data center interconnectors.
Correct.
My understanding.
It's not my daily bread and butter, but okay, that's going to be part of the problem.
So geographically, because you're based in Europe, obviously, but I'm guessing you have oversight of what's going on a lot in America. Seeing what's going on in the US, there's a lot of talk about fiber investment there and activity with takeovers. I don't really cover Lumen and this sort of thing, but is the revenue growth at the moment that Nokia's seeing mainly coming from that part of the world, or is it still being driven a lot by what's going on in Europe?
I think it's a bit across. So and again, to be honest, I focus on my numbers, so I don't really know very well what the others are doing.
Yeah.
But I think in general, I don't see too unhappy faces around the table. So I think we all get our fair share.
Yeah.
Because it's again we're in that wave where we need the coverage still. Look at Europe. I think according to these latest data reports that typically some analysts are reporting, we covered now about 2/3 of Europe.
So there's still quite a long way to go in Europe.
There's a bit of a way to go, right? There's about 30% still to cover.
Okay.
Is it going to be all fiber? Probably not, because at a point you're going to reach the last 5-10%.
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough to cover. So either you subsidize that as a government, or you just use alternatives.
Yeah. When it is, I mean, it's going to come, I guess, in the next few years. We're going to get to the point when fiber's gone about as far as it can do, and we're kind of getting close to that now in the UK. It seems, with the open reach. I think that what is it they're trying to get to? 25 million homes or something by end of next year.
Yeah, the engine rolls fast.
Yeah, and then it's like most premises covered. But where's the opportunity then? Is it then looking at these technologies like 25G PON and going up the? So
it's a good question actually, which I ask myself very often. Well, first, Europe is not moving at the same pace in every place. So, for example, there are some countries that are still lagging behind. So there's still potential in that sense.
Can you let us know, or are you worried about getting in trouble with those countries? Like who's ahead and who's behind?
Well, if I may say, I'm a Belgian.
Yeah.
So I noticed that Belgium wasn't among the front runners, if I may say that.
Right.
But okay.
And it's not the biggest country. So they got no excuse.
And then the other
no mountains.
No, true. No, but you know what? The question is, of course, once you have someone in the competitive landscape who starts to stir the pot,
right?
Yeah,
you get a dynamic, and that's exactly what happened in the UK, I guess, with a lot of altnets going after that opportunity.
Yeah,
and it generates a bit of a virtuous circle of investments. I guess in Belgium that came a bit later. There's a few reasons, by the way. In some countries, whether right or wrong, if you have a very solid broadband network, which either has VDSL on copper or even coax technology, okay, probably you're good for a while, and that probably caused Belgium to move a bit late.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so there has to be a driver. You're not just going to do it for the virtual.
Which is pragmatic, which is practical. I'm not even going to complain about it. But I got my fiber connection only like a year ago. Huh?
Yeah,
really.
And I've been evangelizing fiber for 15 years.
I'm the geezer in charge of fiber, and I really just fucking got it. What's going on?
But anyway,
you're supposed to say you had it back in the 90s.
yeah. I should have said that. But and then there's,
did you go to your colleagues? This fiber's all right, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's quite a good idea.
And then your Pax Pills gave me the suggestion. So Germany is a bit behind. And they know that, and and that's also where, again, for companies like us, that is opportunity, because they're still deploying.
Is Germany being behind partly to do with because cable technology was quite predominant, wasn't it?
I mentioned also in the context of Belgium, right? So there is a correlation. There is a strong correlation that where there is strong, let's say, connectivity with either VDSL or cable or both.
Yeah.
It's true that those countries probably can afford to move a bit more slowly, and then a lot will depend on the competitive landscape. How fast does the incumbent want to go? How fast do the competitors want to go?
Spain's quite ahead, isn't it?
Well, Spain was among the early. I think they're pretty much done.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it? Without me wanting to overgeneralise about either Spain or Germany, it's counterintuitive that Spain is more technologically advanced than Germany.
In that area. Yeah.
I won't go any further. I'll get in trouble.
There's reasons for that. There were there's a few reasons for that, by the way. I think the copper network wasn't as sophisticated as in other places, so that was actually a negative for DSL technology.
So I heard one explanation given to me years ago, that a couple of years ago, that Spain and some of the southern European countries hadn't made it as easy to unbundle the local loop.
The local loop unbundling, yeah.
And that was like then provided impetus for people to invest in alternative networks, whereas if you allow these to do that.
And then if the government is behind, and all of a sudden there was this thrust. By the way, are we then done in Spain? Interestingly, the ones who moved early, guess what they deployed? They deployed plain vanilla GPON networks. So will there be a need for them to buy, at a point, networks that do 10 gig PON? Yeah, sure.
Is that happening then in Spain?
So there's renewal. There's renewal ongoing.
It is.
So it's planned, yeah.
And the UK, because there's the conversation at the moment is all about. Sorry, I'm trying to undo a beer and worried about it going.
So Ian's on the plainly labelled Vedette right now, which you can get over here.
There's loads of coverage at the moment in the national newspapers about broadband in the UK to do with companies like City Fibre and consolidation, and it seems like we've had a market for a long time that's been lots and lots of altnets maybe with plans but not really doing anything. And I think there's a hope. I know there's always a hope in mobile that consolidation will be a good thing and spur investment because it creates stronger companies. Is there a similar feeling about the UK broadband sector at the moment? Or
to be very honest, I think in any country, because I've seen so many, you get the peak of many companies coming to the party and trying to get their share. So it's almost unavoidable that at the point this has to come back to normal. I mean, last time we counted, we had 100 plus companies deploying fiber in the UK.
Yeah,
that's a lot of companies. So it's a bit the unavoidable phase in the process. There's also a bit the overbuilding, right?
Yeah.
Okay, again, I'm a vendor, so I shouldn't complain about overbuilding.
No, you actively encourage it.
But I guess you want some overbuilding.
No, I wouldn't say that. Look, I don't determine the rules, guys.
So if someone goes, look, I'm going to overbuild the fuck out of this. Can I buy some stuff off you? You're going to go, no, mate. I'm going to save you from yourself. Yeah. Come back in a year.
But how can we do that? I mean, if that company has the right to deploy and got a license for it.
I don't think Nokia. So I'm going to do my bit of PR for Nokia here, which I shouldn't really be doing. Yeah. I don't think Nokia does do that because then you have the figure.
Paul's job.
Then you have the figures that have certainly been cited to me in the past that they always say it needs to be a sort of 30% take-up rate for it to make sort of economic sense in the short term.
Yeah, usually those files.
Yeah, which I think have also been cited by a few analyst companies. Is that's what which implies that you're looking at some three networks.
Look, not only in the UK, but then there's this wholesaling dynamic where people try to get more people to the party. So I think it's look, overbuilding is in principle never a good idea, and I think it's gonna go to normal at a point in time.
But I think it's good. I think there's two, from my perspective. I think there's two arguments, aren't there? Because there's one that you want to do it in the most economically viable way possible and not spend ridiculous amounts of money on useless infrastructure. But you also want competition and choice. So
yes,
I guess it's getting the middle between.
Is that balance?
Do you just want one national network that, with all the downsides that you get because it's then effectively a monopoly, versus having 20 altnets, which is clearly
absolutely
economically sort of wasteful, I guess. But yeah,
and then where I still see, if I may, a bit of territory.
Do you want another beer, Bjorn, by the way? Or?
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah,
you can have another wingman, or you can have one of these neck oils.
Well, I'll try another one, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
try the neck oil. Sorry, I've been nicking your neck oil, mate, because you've been sticking to the Belgians.
Well, I like to drink different beers.
I see the image of a skull there. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a session IPA. It's only 4.3. Don't worry.
Okay.
You're not going to start giving away trade secrets.
Yeah. We were talking about cable. Cable in Germany. Cable's been a big thing in the UK with Virgin Media O2. But is that the technologies? What is it? DOCSIS, isn't it? DOCSIS is the kind of family. Is that considered to be a technology that won't be there if we go 10, 20 years in the future? Is all of that going to go to fibre as well, do you think? Or?
The question is timing, I think, right? Because it's funny. Okay, it's funny that those people who've been deploying copper technologies or copper broadband technologies in their telephony networks, they're not shying away from admitting that this is a technology that sooner or later will probably need to be phased out, for all reasons, right? Because it's not from a green perspective, right? From an environmental perspective, PON is so much more efficient. So it's also about the operational cost to maintain that network. I don't know cable technology as much. Right? It's never been really my thing, but I'm just guessing that similar questions are asked, because that is a technology that is probably consuming much more power than fiber networks. So it's a matter of time, I think. But the question is, of course, the big question is when. I can't say that.
I never, because Telecoms.com is much more UK and Europe focused than Light Reading, which covers a lot of US stuff. I'm never really right about cable.
But I get Jeff to do it.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway.
Well, don't ask me. Ask
only because you just brought it up. What the difference is between copper and cable?
DOCSIS.
So I'm just asking.
DOCSIS, yeah.
There's multiple conversations going on the pod.
Yeah, no. Well, there's some gesturing.
Checking if one of our guests wants a drink.
No, he wasn't asking for a beer.
He wasn't reminding me.
He was gesturing at Bjorn. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned Brian, and Brian would literally kill me if I wouldn't ask him. So apparently he bought your book. So I know.
Oh, you like changing the subject
I've no
from
idea.
coax
we
to
can
this.
definitely change the subject.
I have no idea if many people bought your book, but you will tell me. Anyway, and he asked, he's such a non-selfish person, because he didn't ask you to sign his book for him, but he actually wanted you to sign it for one of his close friends and
I think
a
it's the
colleague
first
of
time
mine.
anyone's ever asked me to sign
Scott,
a book.
Sandra, you know Sandra? Is one of
I know Sandra, yeah. She's a big fan of the pod. Hello, Sandra.
Oh, he's a super fan, and you'd really do an amazing pleasure to Sandra if you could.
Well, it'd be a pleasure. And Sandra, one day you should just come out. Last time I saw Sandra, I said she should come out for a beer after the pod one day. I think, does she live in Ireland? So she's not around that much. But anyway, Sandra, I extend that offer once more. Come and join us at the Rose and Crown after the pod.
You could be on the cusp of big things, Scott, all of a sudden.
I'll try not to spill any beyond the book.
Take off.
With Bjorn, Brian and Sandra evangelising my book, I think the sky's the limit. J.K. Rowling will be polishing my boots by the end of the
Let's show
year.
it to the camera for the viewers.
My book.
Yeah, you'll have to explain.
I think I've already got a smiley one of me.
you would have to explain the title to me one day, the identity crisis.
Yeah. Well, if I can persuade you to come out for a beer before your train, I'll bore you with it.
Okay.
Anyway,
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
So because
forget the cable thing.
You said where's the potential? You said where's the potential? Look, we're deploying fiber until we don't, right? The passive infrastructure. We'll have to bring technologies along, right? GPON, 10 gig, and then at a point you'll probably start throwing more speed at it. Are residential going to be the initial driver? In the US we had Google Fiber, who boldly went to, even bring 25 gig to residentials.
Yeah.
It's maybe a bit of a bazooka to what's really needed. But again,
that was with Nokia, wasn't it?
That was with us, right?
Yeah.
But again, think of the peak speeds, right? Think of the instantaneous moments where you really want to draw some speed from the network. But we're thinking more about using fiber for enterprises or for campuses and because you build your fiber network anyway, right? You go down every street, you pass by every building, so why not connect everything that's in the neighborhood?
Do you think though? The some of these really high speed technologies like 25 GPON for residential, which doesn't really seem to have happened, but everybody's excited about AI at the moment, obviously. In fact, I was just chatting to someone before I set off quite late about AI in mobile and what impact that might have on the radio access network. But is there a view, is there a scenario where some of those applications, inside when you look at this stuff, where you're thinking this could be a big game changer for bandwidth?
If I look at residential use, look, most homes they're not connected through a wireless connection, right? They're on Wi-Fi, huh? And at the end of the day, you're going to backhaul them on a fixed network. That's what you're typically going to do. So if the premise is like, okay, AI is going to drive mobile traffic, undoubtedly there's going to be as well a strong drive of traffic in the fixed part of the network. The question is what kind of let's say use cases are going to drive that need for speeds.
That'll come up in the next segment as well, I think. Ian.
Yeah, and I'm hearing cool use cases, right? The question for me is not a matter of is it going to happen? I think it's just again a matter of time. AI, what can AI do? Okay, you send a video upstream to the clouds. They'll do translation of the video, send it back. That's a lot of traffic that has to pass back and forth. But think also about those real-time applications. You can maybe put up some glasses or goggles that will do real-time translations and that's a use case. Honestly, why would we not do that? I mean, one day that technology allows that to do that. Why would we not do that?
We had one that I wasn't aware of actually. Ronan Kelly brought it up. Is the video games like some games like Microsoft Simulator who have these enormous maps that don't fit on a hard drive.
Okay.
So you're constantly going into the cloud.
You're just streaming the map.
And you want that access as if it were just near you. So that's going to be a huge traffic.
You don't want latency for that,
But by the way, I speak with colleagues who have much more imagination than I do, and one of them said, hey, robots, because you've seen that famous factory in Finland.
Yeah,
those are robots, all right, but to be honest, they're typically pre-programmed, so they're not very uncontrollable. But think about this hype of humanoid robots that get affordable these days.
Yeah. Believe me, we think about them all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
But normally in a dystopian way.
but again, imagine the day when there's this robot walking around your house, taking care of your chores, and imagine that entity will have to.
Yeah, sounds like a Tom Selleck film called Runaway
for sure.
If Scott had one, it would be called Dave.
Yeah.
But you're going to have
Dave the robot.
But seriously, if you want that to happen, you have to have a really reliable broadband connection with a lot of speed. because you need the latency and the speed at the same time.
Well, it's interesting that you refer to your colleagues having more imagination than you, because I realise when I'm being sceptical, and I'll stand by my scepticism, but sometimes when I'm being sceptical, I think it's also a failure of my own imagination or just knowledge of what's possible on where we could go. Because, we often talk about it on the pod, and a regular guest of ours is a chap called William Webb, who talks about, specifically in the context of mobile traffic, isn't it?
I think he talks about fixed as well.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay. But he talks about, it peaking in terms of, the main driver for traffic is video. And then you're getting to a point where, most people are already subscribed to several video streaming services, have got several devices. There's a sort of peak in likely consumption of certainly video in a domestic sense, whether it's over mobile networks or fixed. And so that's one of the reasons why it's easy to imagine that when we've got companies, including your Swedish competitor, always going on about constant traffic demand, we're sometimes sceptical and we go, well, are you sure it's going to keep going up and up and up and up and it's not going to peak? But then that could just be a failure of imagination, and you just need to find new use cases. Yeah, it's not going to be video driving it, but it could be some of the things you were just describing.
Totally, because you said that this person said, like, it's web, right? I think I read an article about him doubting indeed how much is enough. But again, you said it, right? He says the killer app is now video. Now, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But what in 10 years from now? What in 10 years from now? When we did ADSL, back to that one, we thought 1 meg was cool. We thought we'd never fill the pipe.
Yeah. The history of technology is always people going, you don't need any more than that, and you always do.
1,000 or times. I'm not saying we're going to go 1,000 times another cycle, but maybe hundreds. Why not?
I mean, I think this is the thing, though, because these conversations were probably had back in 2007, 2008. I remember writing about ADSL and how I think BT at one time was investing in ADSL 2+, which was a step up
from the intermediate step.
And and it was quite a big jump. And it was like, is there a need for this? Is it necessary? People have always questioned it, haven't they? Because you don't see what's round the corner. So it's quite. I mean, I like William's thesis, and his data is really good and compelling. But you've always got to have that in the back of your mind. We don't really know what the future holds.
Yeah.
So
you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Someone smart, so not me, but someone smart said one day, and I don't know the exact quote, but said, "Look, we tend to overestimate what technology will do in the coming few years, but we tend to underestimate what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years.
And we,
it's true.
And it could be the same quote or a variant of it. We sort of overestimate the short-term implications and underestimate the long-term implications.
That's what I'm thinking. So,
yes, and I think that is true. I mean, it just happens that, for example, us as commentator and journalists, we're always, almost by definition, commenting on short-term trends, aren't we?
Yeah.
And part of our self-appointed job as journalists is to interrogate hype and marketing and that sort
and you're
of
right
thing.
to do so because look, a couple of years ago, every one of us was writing out the metaverses, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And
one company even changed its fucking name.
That didn't last long. but still, honestly, the use case. Imagine one day you put up those goggles and you could walk around in ancient Rome. It's a cool use case. Now, maybe the time is not right now, but maybe in 10 years from now, it's affordable, it's doable.
The metaverse was definitely something that you could see because of what it was envisaged to be, having a big impact on data consumption, data traffic, I guess. True. And the thing that people seem to be talking about at the moment, which I could kind of see happening, and I think we're probably not talking about this because even Tommy Wito of Nokia was.
In fact, we're going to have to pivot in a sec. So
but when you're done, the kind of idea of glasses and scene recognition, sort of taking in images, and it goes to an AI that says you're in New York now.
Heads
by
up
the
display
way,
thing.
this is nearby, and that seems to be quite a big
But even
deal.
like full VR, like a 360.
No, well, not outdoors though, because you walk
but like
into
at home,
something,
like
obviously.
a
But
360 bubble of video is exponentially bigger.
For sure. Or holograms for gathering. But one thing though, important, residential. We keep looking for imagination in the residential space. Where I think is still a lot of potential for this kind of technologies is the campus and the in-building networks.
Yeah.
Because come to think of it, we've been saying everything needs to get to fiber, but still every building we built is still copper cabling, cat cabling.
Yeah.
And we're actually connecting our future offices, in my view, not in the right way, because we have this potential to do this in a much more, let's say, environmentally friendly way, and so forth and so forth. And what's funny is that there are standards these days for building buildings. There's this standard called BREEAM. I'm not sure you ever heard about it. I don't know the exact acronym, but I think B stands. It's BREEAM with 2 E's.
Okay.
I think B stands for building. I forgot the R, I forgot the E, but it's something like environmental assessment method.
Right.
That's what I do remember. And it's a kind of certification label you get if you build. And guess what? People put solar panels on the roof. Everyone accepts. Heat pumps, fine. We do triple glazing instead of double glazing. We do all that. And then we try to up our BREEAM score. But guess what? If you would replace your typical Ethernet switched LAN network by a PON network, which is called optical LAN, you'd get more points. You'd get probably much more or a much better score than through any of the other measures. And yet that is not, how to say, that is not yet widely adopted. I like yet. Because that says that
it does
potential.
feel inevitable. As you've said a couple of times, Bjorn, it's a matter of timing.
Yes.
A lot of these technological trends are inevitable. Obviously, you can only sweat copper assets for so long, and obviously fiber's better in every respect for data. So it's just a matter of time.
I think so.
And as you say, in terms of future proofing and getting these green brownie points, then why not? So before we move, I want to give a chance because I'm aware of the time. Given Pierre's hard stop, we've only got about 40 minutes left. But before we move on to our trip up to Oulu, have we covered a lot of the stuff that you wanted to cover about your? Well,
it's typically what I deal with every day. There's maybe a few more things. Just naming.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, again, if you foresee capacity in the network, at some point in time, you need to understand that at home, you probably also want an infrastructure that supports that. So that's also explaining why we pay a lot of attention to making sure you got a decent Wi-Fi infrastructure that allows to get all the right speeds in all the right corners of the house. So that's probably explaining one of the things we do. If you cannot connect fiber everywhere, you probably want to consider fixed wireless access as a kind of complementary technology to have more coverage. I think that's another thing I deal with. And maybe the last thing to close with.
So fixed wireless access comes under your bit? Because it's very much a hybrid between mobile and fixed.
It sits with fixed broadband part.
Right.
And it's very much that actually, because the house doesn't move, does it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we focus on the fixed part. And then the last thing, if I may, is probably all about, because what do operators ask? A few things. They ask us, give us ideas to generate more revenues and give us means to reduce our cost of operation. Those are the two most popular questions I'm getting. And the whole, you could say, industry trend to automating networks and get them in a shape of being as autonomous as possible, it's a big debate. It's a big debate. And there's, in my view, still enormous evolutions to be taken, because operators, they sometimes did their own automation tools and all. But okay, for example, in Nokia, we also have, let's say, platforms that would allow operators to work on both ends, actually, to make life easy in operating the network and also find cool use cases that they can use to then position as upsell or opportunities. Automating is like self-driving cars, right? At a point in time, you will just develop the car in such a way that ultimately the car can fully drive by itself. But that doesn't come in one step, right? It came from purely manual cars through cruise control, which was, to be honest, pretty dumb. You just fix the speed, that's all.
Yeah.
Then
by dumb, you mean it's not very sophisticated?
No. It was nice because it was one step of automation. Yeah. But then think about next steps, right? You have lane assist, interactive. You monitor traffic. You react to it.
On braking, cars that are too clever for their own good.
That's my point.
But
still, in most use cases, you still need to be in sort of conditional environments, right? You like, okay, that car can drive only if it drives in that neighborhood, or only on that type of highway. So the ultimate nirvana of self-driving cars will be a vehicle that pretty much can drive in any circumstance.
Yes,
and where we're at,
and not crash.
And where we're at in the telecoms sector, I think, is a lot of operators aspire to be taking that next step in the journey, and definitely they're not yet even in the stage of self-driving cars, because they want to find ways to avoid human interventions, because those cause errors.
Yeah.
As that.
I see that with like AI tools for audio and video and stuff, where they do a demo, it's always in the perfect conditions.
Yes.
And it works there, I guess. But
and guess what? The telecom network isn't perfect, so there's a lot of circumstances to take into account. But again, there's for me a lot of evolution still to come in that area.
I was going to ask one last thing.
Go on,
I was just wondering what you think of the competitive environment at the moment, because it's. I mean, there's always concern about it in the RAN, which we're going to talk about in a bit, I guess. But there's
if you ever give me a chance,
it seems quite concentrated in broadband as well. And I noticed in particular, which has been in the news a bit recently, Sienna last week pretty much said it's getting out of broadband. Just kind of wondering what you think about that and why they've not been able to make a go of it when they've been quite successful.
Ciena is not exactly my cup of tea, because they're typically competing in the optical transport.
Yeah, but they were trying to make a push for fixed access, and now
but again, from where they came without the legacy and the tradition, I think it was much harder, I guess, to grab a footprint. But okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. If I may quote Forrest Gump, but
you can plead the fifth anytime you want, Bjorn. It's fine.
Look, in my world, okay, fixed competition is primarily okay. I have some Chinese colleagues who play along, but again, I think it's quite remarkable that for the past, let me be proud of that. But for the past 20-25 years, we've been consistently driving innovations and leading the market.
Yeah,
that cannot be a coincidence.
Yeah,
we must be doing something good.
Yeah, it's obviously not an easy thing for someone to just come along and go, "Oh, we'll have a go at that as well."
I think,
I think we can say that Alcatel-Lucent is probably a rare example of mega M&A that turned out all right. I mean, I think it's pretty disruptive for Nokia for a while, but it seems to have all turned out pretty well. So fair enough.
Yeah.
Paul's smiling. Because you're from that bit, aren't you, Paul?
Sorry, Mike.
So are you. Yeah. No, it does seem to have gone well. And I would have thought...
Well, anybody on the fixed side would be, yeah?
Yeah.
So
And the more diversified, compared to Ericsson, the more diversified exposure you have to the market is something that Nokia is presumably happy about. So, yeah.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, the other bit that Nokia does is mobile. In fact, there was a bit of an M&A
special
M&A back in the day with that, wasn't it? With Nokia Siemens networks and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's been loads of M&A.
Back when Nokia went, hold on a sec, this handset thing's going Pete Tong, and they decided to double down on networks instead.
I tell you something. When we got a DSL award, for the first time, I made it to national television in Belgium.
Oh yes,
and I was getting ready to get to the studio, and was getting.
So you're a broadcast veteran.
Exactly. So I got my makeup and all, and then while I was sitting at the makeup table, I kid you not, I was just looking out of my corner of my eye, and guess what was the first image I saw? It was a Nokia phone.
Right.
So because for the broad audience, to make it recognizable, guess what? They put a Nokia 3310, and I went, oh no, not again.
Oh, okay, because for some people that's still the primary reference.
But okay, fine.
Yeah.
I went to the journalist and said, look, we can do this, but can we pivot away to what I really want to talk about? He said, yes, fine.
You know we don't fucking make handsets anymore.
Legendary phone, though.
It is. Well, it's been an interesting thing, actually, a bit of a tangent. It's been an interesting, I imagine, dilemma for marketing and comms within Nokia. It's such a massive brand. I mean, in terms of consumer brands, in its heyday, it would have been a top 5 global consumer brand, I would have thought. And how do we not completely sort of abandon all that brand equity while still not giving mixed messages about what we're up to now? It must be an internal dilemma.
Interesting, because I was watching a series on Amazon Prime in the last few days. It's one of those things you put on late at night called The Terminalist Dark Wolf with Taylor Kitsch, and it's CIA sort of operatives, but ran about the time of the Iraq conflict. So there's a lot of Nokia handsets in it, and it's like number 2 in Amazon Prime's most watched list at the moment. So obviously a lot of people are watching it. It's got a good cast, and it's like they're doing a really good thing for the Nokia brand. Yeah. Most people I talk to generally, when I said I'm going to Oulu for a Nokia event, and you talk to your sort of friends about it, they go, Nokia, they still around?
Still around?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they ask.
No, I think, to be fair, it was a golden opportunity for me as well, because, local press, Belgium, but still, you can guess that all these things we develop in Antwerp, we need engineers, right?
Yeah.
So the brand is also important. So I thought the most important thing for that occasion was, just to explain to the broad audience, like, hey, guys, we do these cool things, right?
Yeah.
We build the part of the network you don't see. And that's the story of our lives. Right? We built the part that people don't see.
The brand, the new brand, because it was unveiled under Pekka Lundmark, wasn't it? And I think at the time everybody's like, it looks a bit weird. Whereas now, if you look at the old one, it makes it look. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how your perceptions change? It does look quite sleek.
Because we saw the old one and some of the kit that we saw in Oulu.
Yeah, and it's like,
God, it is quite different.
It looks really sort of old-fashioned.
To me, what made the difference is that finally I could use another color than blue for change in my presentation. So.
Yeah, of course.
So actually, there's a bit of a transition from that tangent to our Oulu trip, which is Ian and I shared a briefing because we were running out of time before we had to catch our flight on the final day we were there, and so we shared a briefing that was going to be separate one-on-ones with the head of mobile, Tommy Wito, And he gave us an early sighter to an announcement that came out earlier on this week, which is, Nokia is very active in the defence sector right now, and one of the launches was a phone. And I just went straight away and just in a flippant way, I went, "Oh, so you're getting back into phones, are you?" And he was straight away like, "No, don't say that." I'm paraphrasing, but and I even put in my story at the start. I said, "Don't say Nokia's getting back into phones; they won't like that."
So imagine the timing. So just a week ago, I told the whole Belgian audience, "We're not doing phones."
Yeah, and then this thing comes
guess what? When I read that, it's like, oh no.
But anyway, Nokia obviously isn't. Just to clarify, but there was this one announcement this week where, as part of their defence offering, including this quite cool, like whole mobile network in a backpack type of thing, they got. What's that called? The brand for that?
Banshee.
Banshee, yeah.
It was done by Phoenix Group originally.
That's right, which they acquired
about a year and a half ago, I think.
But they got this ruggedized phone that's especially handy for when you're running around fields trying to kill baddies. So there we go. But no, the main thing. Why don't I tee it up for you, Ian? And we both went on this trip up to earlier, and the whole point of it was to see this amazing, massive new R&D and manufacturing campus that they got up there for radio. Mm-hmm. I couldn't resist. In my headline was Nokia goes gaga for radio, and I even got a screenshot of Radio Gaga, the Queen song, from YouTube. Yeah, I've just opened up another Belgian one, the Gnome one.
The
McShoof. So that's 6.5%.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's 8%.
Yeah, this is a bit stronger.
God help me.
This is a bit stronger. It's a double Ale.
This is 6.5.
Right, and you're having a bit of Seif, which has got quite a Seif, which has got a picture of some sort of Brill Cream geezer enjoying a beer on it.
Zeefhoek is a certain neighborhood in Antwerp, actually.
Okay,
and that's what it was named after. And you can see from the etiquette, by the way, it's a bit of nostalgic, right?
Yeah, it is an old school label.
Old school label.
Yeah,
and you got plenty of that, to be honest. You got plenty of these.
Cool. So yeah, I went with that, and I guess before I hand it over to you, Ian, I started by doing a mea culpa, because when the new Nokia CEO Justin Hotard, an American, was appointed earlier on this year, and he came very much from a sort of data center, sort of big tech kind of background, Intel and HPE. I just extrapolated from that it signified a move by Nokia away from mobile and away from Europe. It's us journalists reserve the right to just shoot from the hip and just reckon things in the public domain. And I was very happy at the start of this to sort of go, yeah, well, you couldn't have found a better way of correcting my assumption than taking us to this enormous thing, which they must have spent hundreds of millions, if not billions on. I mean, it's obviously a massive investment. How much of a sweetener they got from the Finnish government, we also couldn't get out of them. But either way, the collective investment is enormous, and it's a clear, massive commitment by Nokia to being highly competitive in radio for the foreseeable future. So I thought that was really cool. But why don't, having teed it up that way, Ian, why don't you tell us your sort of initial impressions and what you wrote about and all that?
Yeah, I agree. But if I was going to be a skeptic about the...
which is your job to be.
About the... like linking this opening with, this means a lot. Yeah. I mean, that decision was obviously taken a long time before Justin Hotard got there.
Well, you went there when they started building it, didn't you?
Well, it wasn't started building it. They'd finished the shell of it was done then. I mean, there's a lot that's obviously happened in the last 2 years. I was in Oulu in November 23, and it had all the interior to be done, but the lifts were working. There was an outside shell and everything. So that investment decision to build a new campus was taken a long time before him, and actually would have been finished pretty much before he even became CEO.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's his choice.
So the bigger questions maybe is if he had to invest in a new R&D centre today, would he have signed off on it?
Fair enough.
And then again, being a skeptic, the concern, and I think this is even raised in the press conference, is do they spend enough on R&D in mobile?
Yeah.
Because, you cited some big numbers there, but if you look at what they're putting into R&D as a whole, and they don't break it out, you've got my chart up on your screen, but they don't break it out by division.
No.
But and certainly I think there was a criticism under Rajiv Suri when he was there that things had sort of gone down. And it went up a bit, I think, under Pekka Lundmark, but then it kind of leveled off. It's been fairly, if you look at it, annual spending sort of 2016 to 2024, it's up a little bit, but it's not up a dramatic amount. And whereas Ericsson's has increased a lot. If I'm going to give the Nokia perspective on it, because I think he was pretty much directly asked this question,
yes.
not by me, but by Gillian at Bloomberg.
Yeah, so we had like a group media thing with Justin first and then Tommy, and that included people like Bloomberg.
And if she hadn't asked a question, that would have been my question to ask, but she sort of got in there first and said, it looks like you're sort of outspent by Ericsson in terms of mobile R&D. What's your response to that? Can you remain competitive? I'm paraphrasing her, but I think she pretty much asked that. I thought we gave a really good response, which was, it's not like R&D and the numbers you spend are one metric to look at. And you can be very efficient with your spending, and you can be quite disruptive with your spending. And if you look at a company like Arista, which came along and didn't have anything like the R&D budget of Cisco, for instance, and it's emerged as a really kind of strong competitor. And then the other thing he said, which I thought was a pretty good endorsement of Tommy Wito, who I've got a fairly favourable opinion of anyway, I think, as someone who's been a good sort of head of that business group. Mm-hmm. But he sort of said a lot of the R&D decisions that you take in an area like mobile, they tend to take, some of them take it can be 5-7 years before they even start showing up. So products now are just coming to market that Nokia is doing in mobile that you're seeing because of decisions that were taken when I think Tommy became head of mobile networks in late 2018. And I think the stuff that had happened up to him coming in and not been good, which is why they had some of the early problems in 5G portfolio. Right. Which
was that the chip side and all that
I mean, a lot gets made of the chip side, the sort of heavy reliance on Intel and sort of being let down on 10 nanometer designs. But I think it was a little bit more than that. I think the Alcatel-Lucent merger was more problematic for the mobile side because there's overlapping bits that they had to bring together, which is always complicated in a merger. Whereas the fixed thing, it was just like we're buying a fixed business sort of thing. And there were some software issues as well, but that's history now. Like their mobile, to me, my honest judgment is I think their mobile stuff looks like really competitive, and I think some of the things that have happened where there's been questions about them, like the big ones, the AT&T decision in late 2023. I don't think that's to do with the technology.
No, I think having read like one of your, I think your main piece covering it, but you've written one or two, perhaps one or two more derived from that trip. Yeah. But your main piece, which I thought was an interesting headline, Nokia recommits to mobile despite all today's ugliness. I was just like, ugliness? What ugliness is he referring to? I think you were just referring to the mobile industry as a whole. Yeah. But it wasn't immediately obvious. As soon as I read it, I was like, what ugliness?
Well, it's ugly for them, particularly, and it's ugly for the industry. Yes. I mean, they're on a first half basis, the mobile networks business group was loss making, and its revenues are down because they're still in this situation where they're replacing what you lost at AT&T, which was a big part of sales. I think they estimated like 5 to 8% when that happened, and then that's a very profitable market. So, and these questions I think we asked these questions in the press conference, like why is it an attractive place to be at the moment? Given, like,
I think you asked that.
Yeah, you're not in North America anymore, and it's difficult. And I think Justin was saying, I mean, there's the China angle, which we can go into. Well,
that was one of the...
Maybe don't want to go into that too much. But
that was one of the news hooks that came out of the whole event.
I think the more interesting one may be, if you don't want to go down the geopolitics route, was some of the stuff that we were talking about to do with what are the new use cases that are coming along.
Yes, which is a question I asked.
Yeah, and also... the shape of the market in Europe is an interesting one. I mean, it's been talked about for years, but that to me would have maybe a bigger impact on where on the profitability of companies that are selling mobile network products to telcos is, and I do agree with this to some extent. This idea that you've got Europe's like a massive landmass, and it's 500 million people or something. It's not a small area. Why can't
but as a block, it's as big as the US or East Asia or whatever. We should be able to have a Europe that's just as competitive as China or the US. But we have this situation where there's a huge amount of fragmentation. There's like lots of networks per country. There's conflicting regulations. If you can address that,
then oh no, we're going to run out of tape.
No, he's just centering you because you keep squirming around like a toddler.
It's funny. I hear that from a Brit. You guys decided to no longer subscribe to the yearly EU subscription, right?
But I
voted leave. So
politically, I think that's the challenge. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to fix, but I think the idea of having a trade area where you can have some. How you deal with it, I don't know, but I think that's a really interesting thing to raise.
Well, on that tangent, and me having announced myself as a boo hiss leave voter, I mean,
well done. That fixed everything.
Nice one, Scott. But it is the United States of Europe problem, isn't it?
It is.
And this isn't me trying to have a pop at the EU. I made my feelings clear in 2016, obviously.
We're not as united as we would.
Well, it's it, and in many ways, it's good. That you're not too united, because this is a continent with millennia of history and a million different languages and cultures and all that. You can't just homogenize it. But that also leads to this problem of this collective policy.
Because I came in sort of sounding really negative, and like your thing about this R&D centre shows that they're not going to, they're not going to commit, they're not going to give up on mobile and all that. And as I say, I think that decision was taken a long time ago. But I do agree with you. I think one thing he's done since coming in April is show that they're fairly committed to, that they are committed to mobile, that they see that as and in a way it'd be crazy for them. Like, if Nokia can't make a success out of mobile, then who can? Because there's not anybody else.
Well, in most markets in which it plays, there's a duopoly of big vendors anyway.
There's Ericsson and Nokia.
Look at my origin story about ADSL, right? There's not a coincidence that we're strong in fiber, because we've got a legacy, right? We got a history. So does Nokia in the mobile part, right?
Yeah,
so I'm unboxing,
it's all right.
And I think the other interesting thing that he came out with was the stuff about you had Rajiv Suri there talking about end-to-end a lot, and getting rid
you
of
asked
silos.
that question.
Yeah.
So just to frame it, when Nokia first bought Alcatel-Lucent, a lot of the narrative was like, right, now we got the full Monty and we can sell it accordingly. And there was some skepticism at the time, and then there was a walk back of that. And I think one person, maybe it's Becca Lombard, went, it turns out people don't fucking buy the full Monty.
Well, that was his view, and it seems like Justin doesn't sort of agree, really.
Right.
Sort of, he was saying that his meetings with customers, like lots of people are saying, you need to turn up as one company. I think that's what he said to us.
Which actually I thought was a sort of way of him slightly sidestepping it. I mean, he was answering your question, but he was also being very slick and corporate and going, we're just one company and we need to present, one thing. But he wasn't committing to going all the way back to trying to
he said he didn't like the end-to-end expression. Right. But I do think that it would seem unusual to me that there isn't an opportunity there. If you're in a market where you sell everything and you're in a lot of meetings with customers because you sell everything,
and you're having those conversations. By the way,
maybe Ericsson isn't in those meetings because it doesn't sell everything, and no one's buying RAN equipment for a few months because it's in a bit of a lull.
Totally.
That's a great opportunity for you to go, for you to promote your message about 6G and to sort of talk up what you're doing.
Yes.
And I could.
So I guess you just got to be coherent and joined up about it, which I guess is what Justin was saying.
We just touched on it. Fixed wireless is at a interface, right?
That's at the confluence of those.
Very often in the conversations that I'm having about fixed wireless, it's only one step away from, the mobile network part.
By the way, I was super impressed with the Oulu Centre.
Yes, me too.
And I've done these sorts of things before, and I thought it was really like. I thought it was brilliant, actually.
Talking about sales tools, I mean, drag someone around there, show them the factory floor with all the R2D2s whizzing around the place.
I thought it was a really good trip. I thought it was very slick and well organised, and I thought the centre itself just looks amazing. And
I even thought, like, even the fittings, like, even if you go to the bog, all the fittings are really good there. They obviously haven't spared any expense. The lifts, all the facilities are just really nice. They could do with upgrading the coffee out of the coffee machines. That was one little bit of feedback for you, Nokia. But no, on the whole, I mean, you just thought, not only is this a big investment, it's a massive campus as well.
Yeah.
But they haven't cut any corners. They've gone all in. Was the impression I got from it. So, like, fair enough. And also that point that you were making about investment. I was looking up your story, and you've got a great chart in your story. Where you've tracked from 2016 the relative R&D spending of Ericsson and Nokia. God, Ericsson's was tiny in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ericsson's spending annually, I think, has gone up by about 70%.
Yeah, whereas Nokia's has, in that 10-year period, has been static.
Yeah.
And then, as you rightly point out, Nokia's, that R&D spend is over Bjorn's bit and
they don't break
the
it
mobile
out, so
bit.
you don't know what's going into what.
So, like for like, Nokia must be underspending Ericsson on pure RAN stuff by quite a lot. But I thought Justin and Tommy's pushback of like spend smart
was good.
I mean, it's good to a certain extent. I mean, it's sort of, you would say that when you're the one who's being outspent.
Yeah.
And that's an obvious sort of talking point to fall back on, but that doesn't mean it's bollocks.
It doesn't mean it's bollocks. You can throw lots of money at things and sometimes it doesn't work out. Or if you're quite clever with where you put the money.
Well, and one of the other impressive things that they showed us on this trip was how joined up everything is. So it's not just the RAN R&D, but it's the supply chain and the manufacturing, and it's all in one place. So there's lots of efficiencies of not having to fly around and coordinate with different bits. And there's obviously other places at Oulu, like that Otava bit, where they've got these anechoic chambers for testing out radios and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, the anechoic chamber stuff's interesting because I'd seen that 2 years ago, and they've got this one they call the 360-degree anechoic chamber, which wasn't
anechoic, by the way, the etymology means no echo.
Yeah. Well, if you notice when we were in it, your voice sounds a bit weird. It's a bit eerie. It just sort of dies immediately. Like even in here, which is like not much echo. It's
just pour l'appétit du soir, as they say in French. I went to see the first anechoic chamber in Murray Hill of the Lucent days, or even
back in the day,
in Bell Labs days.
Yeah.
A historical landmark, but it was pretty cool actually.
That's the thing.
But if anyone wonders what we're banging on about, both Ian's coverage and mine has got a picture of that anechoic chamber. There's lots of sort of spiky foam things.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to take photos in the 360-degree one.
No, that was the biggest and most impressive.
I did my best job to sort of describe it, but I thought it was.
I'm not a mobile guy, but I am an engineer, so I think the spiky things are meant to just soften the
noise.
Gradually the signal dies.
Yeah,
but it creates a really sort of strong visual effect.
Yes,
it does. And the 360-degree one, what I thought was interesting about that was they clearly think they've done something there with the design of it, which you're not allowed to photograph.
Yeah,
because they've had customers going around and they said we've not seen anything like this. Knowing those customers go and see things that Ericsson and Huawei would have done as well. So I thought that was quite a strong claim to some sort of technological advance that your rivals haven't sort of managed to pull off.
No, I completely agree. I think it was all good.
I did notice because the president of Finland was there.
It was a big deal for Finland.
I don't quite know why his name's... First, two things about him. I don't know why his name's Alexander Stubb.
That's not very Finnish, is it?
Well, I think he's got a name that comes before that, but everybody refers to him as Alexander Stubb, so maybe he's just sort of anglicised it. And also, he folds his arms too much.
Which is a defensive body language. Come on, Alexander, open up, mate. What are you trying to hide?
He's in two stories. He's in that one. He's a picture of him in that one, and the one I wrote on the kind of the phone for the military.
Oh right, yeah.
He's also folding.
You called it a war phone. I like that.
The war phone.
Yeah. I mean,
I could have commented. I chose not to. So
you don't have to comment on any of this because I don't.
No. Well, I think we sort of covered it. It was a rare example of, obviously with any big like PR flourish, there's the caveat
of box there. Where's that come from? Oh,
I know, that's just me hovering my mouse over it. There's a let's see how it goes sort of thing with any big ta-da, look how great we are sort of announcement. But on the whole, it's one of those rare examples where I was very happy to just take it at face value.
Yeah,
and just go, nice one.
I thought well played. So here's a reason maybe to be optimistic about mobile at the moment, ignoring all the 6G and AI and where that's going to go, is the thing that we got with this sort of scoop on the Warphone stuff, because it's not just that device. The Phoenix Group acquisition was quite a big deal for them. They had some announcement with Motorola Solutions about something they've done for the UK. They've got this Banshee backpack that they're showing off, and then you look at the NATO sort of spending, and Ericsson was sending this message out as well that they've been told that quite a lot of this is going to go on comms gear. And you look at those figures, it sounds like you're increasing your spend from 2% of GDP to 5% of GDP. It sounds like, well, so what? But that's That's obviously massive. Like you're going up like 2.5 times in terms of what
Yeah.
you're spending. It's a huge amount. I looked at the figures that like are in. You can get them from NATO, and it's a massive amount of money. And you think even if a tiny bit of that goes on comms, that's a huge opportunity for these companies. And by the way, you don't have to worry about Huawei. You don't have to worry about ZTE in any of those contracts.
I mean, if we're not allowed Huawei anywhere, we're certainly not. We've got buying military shit.
And by the way, infrastructure may mean mobile to a large degree, but some fixed probably.
And fixed as well. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, and it's got to be said while we're blowing smoke up Nokia's arse. More recent.
I didn't notice.
This is for some reason. This is a metaphor we use quite a lot on this podcast. We even looked it up once on the podcast to see what the origin of it was.
It was a thing.
People did actually used to do that for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's not get into it now.
No.
Those acquisitions, we touched on Infinera earlier, which obviously is well positioned given the massive gold rush that's going on with
Great
AI
takeover,
data centers
I think,
right now. Yeah, well, this is the point I was leading up to.
Yeah.
Those acquisitions, Phoenix, it's got to be said that some of those acquisitions, in hindsight, seem to all be quite strategically spot on.
I spoke with Jim Fagan, who we've had on the pod before, of Exit Infrastructure, a couple of weeks ago.
Brought us that whiskey.
Yeah, and what they do
That's
is
all I remember him for.
They build fibre optic lines between data centres, among other things, and they're going on about the neo cloud opportunity in in Europe at the moment. But he said that pretty much their two biggest suppliers are Infinera and Ciena, essentially.
There we go.
Now Nokia and Ciena. So
okay, on that note, we got 10 minutes left, and we were talking about data centers and cloud and all that sort of thing. I thought I'd just quickly mention something that I flagged up to you, Ian and Pierre, earlier on this week, just because I hadn't realised. Everyone knows. So we're talking about Oracle, which we don't often talk about in a telecoms context, and maybe we're selling them short, but if we are, then that's on them for not making it clearer why we should be talking about.
Get Larry on.
Yeah, get Lazar on.
It
But
looks a bit strange, Larry Ellison, now, doesn't he?
Well, I tell you what, he does look is fucking good for 80 odd.
81 years old.
Yeah,
He's 81, man.
286
This is him last year. He doesn't look 80, does he?
His face is not 80.
His face looks
though.
odd.
He's probably had a bit of work done, but fair enough. I mean,
his face is like 5 years old.
If I was one of the richest people in the world and I was 80, I'm not going to say I wouldn't have a bit of work done.
You'd be drinking your beer now and it would be dripping down your chin because you wouldn't be able to smile
I
properly.
did make an alcohol comment when I was writing about Oracle this week, which I might mention in a little peak of self-congratulation. But so Oracle came out with its quarterlies this week, and they were just mental. The biggest thing was a thing that they called remaining performance obligations, which I interpret just to mean order book, and their RPO had increased in the quarter by
What's RPO?
remaining performance
Oh, sorry.
obligations. Fucking pay attention, mate. It's a Belgian beer. By a remarkable, by 359% to $455 billion. Now,
Yeah, that sounds silly to me.
so they got an order book of nearly $500 billion. Their quarterly total revenues are $15 billion. So it's just an amazing order book they've got.
And also the correct me if I'm wrong on this because I haven't gone through their financials, but I got the impression that their recent financial performance has not exactly been blowing it out of the park.
They missed.
Yeah, they technically missed expectations. Yeah.
Is this order book promises?
And also, isn't one of the companies that's done this big deal with them a company that can't afford to buy anything?
There we go. Yeah. So I'm leading up to that as well. But before we get there, in the brief time we had, there were some quotes. The CEO is the wonderfully named Safra Katz. I just think that's a cool name.
X-Men villain.
Yeah.
The famous photo.
What is
that? I commented on with her going.
I don't remember that photo. So Ian's gesturing at me. I don't know what the fuck is going on about.
It looks like she's measuring the size of something.
Oh, that was Safra Katz, was it? Oh, yeah. I didn't realise. So I remember the joke you made. Okay,
just some random woman that they put into an Oracle story.
I've caught up with you now. This is like a little joke that we're making on our chat group, so I won't bore our audience
joke,
with it.
So we won't.
Yeah. So they got this amazing order book, and they said that they've got these, about 3 or 4 massive orders in from people, and then Larry Ellison so there was canned quotes from Safrikats, and then there was quotes from Ellison himself, who's the founder and still owns over 41% of the company.
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing. Oracle's been going for decades. I think since the 80s or something, maybe. Anyway, and somehow through countless rounds of like investment and IPOs and all that, he's held on to 41% of the shares, which is why he briefly, after their share price spiked after this big announcement, he was the richest man in the world for a bit, overtaking Elon Musk on paper wealth.
It's the same with the richest man in France. He owns like almost half of LVMH.
Yeah.
Which is usually the billionaires.
God, he owns half of LVMH.
Something
is
like
that Arnaud?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, Arnaud.
Yeah.
Yeah, LVMH, for people who don't know, is Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, basically a luxury, dominant luxury consumer brand company. Anyway, this fucking Belgian beer's starting to mess with my stomach.
You know all about those luxury.
Yeah, I know.
You know all about those luxury brands, don't you?
Yeah, I love a bit of luxury. Well, and so does Larry Ellison, I presume.
Yeah. Because
he's the richest man in the world or thereabouts. Anyway, he said. One of his quotes, he said, multi-cloud database revenue from Amazon, Google and Microsoft grew at an incredible rate of 1,529% in Q1. So these kind of numbers are just silly for a big... Well, but he's talking about multi-cloud database. So that's why I went and looked it up. And I said, what is this fucking multi-cloud database? And what it seems to be, loads of times... We used to talk a lot more on the pod than we have recently about the public cloud. And one of the things that we've spoken about quite a lot is like vendor lock-in. Like if you're all in on AWS, how hard it is to move from AWS to Azure or Google Cloud or whatever. Well, it looks like, while we weren't looking, this multi-cloud is Oracle coming up with a sort of management and orchestration layer, as they put it, that gets rid of that problem.
So they say.
And so they say. I mean, this is I don't know much about it.
Squeeze in the middle.
Yeah. It's like an abstraction layer, which means that that you can chop and change between all.
Loads of people have abstraction layers. Then you're dependent on the abstraction layer.
Sure, mate. Look, be as skeptical as you want, but what I'm saying is Oracle is kicking ass right now, and Larry Ellison is saying a big reason for that is multi-cloud. So they must be doing something.
Yeah, but loads of people have been talking about multi-cloud for ages and saying we've got an abstraction layer that allows you to move stuff over. VMware.
Well, but maybe maybe they've cracked it.
No, the people have cracked it. It's just that you're dependent on that abstraction layer.
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah, but it looks like the market is happy to be dependent on it, which is why they're coining it so much right now.
Well, I thought the whole thing to do with the share price spike was to do with AI orders and OpenAI.
Well, I'm coming up to that as well.
A lot of business with them.
But I just thought it's worth flagging up that Larry Ellison, for reasons best known to him, chose to flag up this multi-cloud, which is, I'd never heard of it, and I just went and looked it up, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. But yes, to your point, in the brief time we got left, there was at the end of my story, so my headline was, Oracle reveals itself as a major AI infrastructure player. And, I was showing my own ignorance. I don't pay much attention to Oracle, so this kind of took me by surprise, all this stuff this week. And then the Wall Street Journal got a scoop that said the majority of all these new deals that they were announcing that sent their share price up and all that sort of thing was coming just from one company, which is OpenAI.
Right.
And it's $300 billion worth of business.
Yeah, and they make £2.50 a year.
they make fuck all. Well, actually, I put that at the end of my piece. I said, the Wall Street Journal notes that the deal, which starts in 2027, is risky since OpenAI currently only brings in $10 billion a year. So they've signed a $300 billion contract with a company that brings in $10 billion a year. I think I read something this morning where perhaps inevitably they've projected that by 2030 they'll be bringing $200 billion a year, but that's a hell of a fucking...
Why stop there?
Do you know what I mean?
Surely.
Yeah. Well, they're always talking silly money. And then one thing, I said I was going to do my self-congratulatory bit from my writing. When I was quoting Larry Ellison, I said Ellison, presumably from a champagne jacuzzi aboard his favourite super yacht, because this bloke is not short of a bob right now. But anyway...
He likes super yachts as well.
He does like a super yacht. Well, he likes competitive yachting as well, doesn't he? America's Cup and all that sort of thing. So yeah, in the last couple of minutes we got. I mean, Bjorn, I know this is just completely out of your area. If you've got anything to say, then just butt in. But I was going to ask Ian. You've expressed some skepticism about the multi-cloud thing, but what did you think when you saw what a amazing quarter and share price rise Oracle had.
Well, I think there's got to be a correction.
Right.
It happened already.
Oh, it's happened. Okay, I don't.
Not the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't really believe
I don't think it's corrected that much.
It shaved 10% yesterday.
10% yesterday.
Okay.
So
everyone just got a bit carried away.
It seems like people aren't really getting what's going on, and then to me, it just feeds into the idea that there's an AI bubble going on when you see that sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
And also, I don't quite understand a lot of it anyway, because you look at the current performance and you also look at Oracle's figures for overall cloud spending, what its market share is. It's only 2%. You know, they'd have to have a big share of the market for a lot of this stuff to be feeding through. Now, okay, maybe we can project that in the next few years they're going to be even bigger than AWS and Google in this space. But really, it's certainly not happening right now.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, and I'm really aware, and I'm characterising myself here, but I'm going to extend it to you for the sake of narrative flourish, that we're kind of the blind leading the blind on terms of expertise about Oracle. Because there was another quote within the Oracle thing where they're getting tons of money off the hyperscalers. Right. So it's not a directly antagonistic relationship. They're obviously doing a lot of business with them. And I just don't know enough about Oracle's business model or how it goes about things to know how that works. But I think it was the Safra Katz quote. Where is it?
He was always present at those Trump announcements on AI, you know? What was the thing they called? They had a name for it. Stargate. Yeah, he was there.
That's right. Yeah. Together with the guy from SoftBank and all that.
Well, maybe some of the money's from that then. And that'll work out really well, obviously, because Trump's behind it.
Exactly.
So it's got to be a success.
It's promised money. It's in the order book, you know? Like when Zuckerberg said did you see that? He asked Zuckerberg, how much are you investing? And he said, I don't know, like 600. And then after on a hot mic, he told Trump, I don't know. I wasn't sure which number you wanted me to say.
Oh, well, I mean, thankfully we're out of time to start going on about how weird Trump's interventions are. But were you going to say something? Sorry? No, okay. So I will sign off by saying I've remembered the bit. This was Ellison as well. After he'd gone on about multi-cloud, he'd said, we expect multi-cloud revenue to grow substantially every quarter for several years as we deliver another 37 data centers to our 3 hyperscaler partners. So they are... Again, I just don't know how it works. They are delivering data centers to Amazon, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. So it's really worth a deep dive to work out what the fuck is going on here, because it's completely gone under my radar. I don't know about you. But
well, it's not a telecom story, and the question is whether some of this abstraction layer stuff feeds into the telco sector, because the companies that have been trying to do that in telco, other than the hyperscalers, are people like Red Hat and VMware and Wind River. And my perception at the moment is that some of those guys are retreating from telco.
Right.
So
good point.
Yeah. So we'll have to see.
All right, mate. We're bang on 4. Pierre has children to look after. Bjorn, as is often the way with our guests, when we go off on tangent, we don't expect them to necessily muck in all that. It was great to chat to you, mate. Thanks for coming all the way over from Antwerp.
Yeah.
We'll see how your train home's looking, but maybe we'll persuade you to have a cheeky one in the pub now.
Let's find out.
And yeah, I'm actually relieved that we got a proper podcast, because I thought when I turned up the trade station, there was nothing turning up for about 3/4 of an hour.
Imagine me traveling all the way from Antwerp and then
getting the news. Podcast. Yeah, and then getting the news that I was about to screw it up for you. So we got there in the end. There we are. So we have another one next week. So I'll just say to our audience, thanks for listening, and make sure you join us for that one.